Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Joe Dunlop. I'm the Waste Reduction Administrator for the Solid Waste Department. I'm here asking for $1.1 million of the SPLOST dollars to help us get closer to our achieving our waste reduction goals for this community. This project is somewhat related to the next project you'll hear from my director, moving the recycling processing facility from its current location on Hancock Industrial to the landfill. What our plan is with this project is to occupy that vacant space with 3 current popular programs and a 4th new one, the Creative Reuse Program. The 3 programs are CHARM, Center for Hard to Recycle Material, the Teacher Reuse Store, and the Tool Shed, a Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful program. Those are all described in detail on some of the handouts that you have there. Those programs are all currently located on College Avenue, the CHARM site. We typically refer to it as just north of downtown. Those programs would move to Hancock Industrial. We have some more elbow room there, and at that point we would add the Creative Reuse Program, which is the bulk of my presentation. One thing I want to make clear on is that the Teacher Reuse Store and the Creative Reuse are similar programs, but they have very different material that will be involved and very different audiences. So we want to make sure that the Teacher Reuse Program, which has been going for well over a decade, teachers would continue to get first pick on the good stuff that might come through. Several reasons for moving. I think primarily we have a suspicion that there's private sector interest in purchasing the CHARM location on College Avenue. It's right on the river. The county's gotten a few nibbles on that already from private developers. Again, we really don't have room to add a Creative Reuse Program that we want to expand into the current facility. It's simply not large enough. But with the larger, about 22,000 square feet recycling processing facility, that would give us ample room to expand that program into. And then too, frankly, the proposed uses would be a much kinder neighbor to our next door neighbors, being the Bulldog Luxury RV Park. I think they would take more kindly to Creative Reuse than tractor trailers and forklifts and such. So Creative Reuse, defined, it's also known as upcycling. It's basically the idea of taking an object that's no longer needed or wanted and applying it to a new use, adding a little creativity, and doing something meaningful or useful with it. Yard art is a good example of that, metal sculptures that you see. Diverting this material will help us get to our waste reduction goals. If you look at the hierarchy of reduce, reuse, recycle, recycle is last on that, right? Source reduction, and then reuse kind of trumps recycling. We used to have a program that did the sort of thing. The Trash to Treasures sale was very popular. The proceeds benefited Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful. It was very resource intensive for us in terms of staff time and storage. We would store that material year round, and it was kind of tough to store that all that material out of weather. We have a brand new position at the landfill, just started last week, tasked with using our red building there to divert material from incoming loads at the landfill. Not so much taking apart the contents of a great big stinky garbage truck, but more self-haulers, private pickup trucks with a couch in the back. We can divert that material to Creative Reuse, whereas currently they're focused more on cardboard and scrap metal. But, with a crew of inmates out there being supervised, we look to expand that program, and the Creative Reuse would fit in nicely with that. The project is consistent with our shift in past years of moving from single-day events to a more entrenched program. Single-day events burn Saturdays and overtime. They're just more resource-intensive from a staffing perspective than an ongoing program. And a lot of the programs that we would, materials that we would look at diverting, they're not only a contaminant for the recycling facility, they're also problematic for the landfill. If the landfill has operations, and an electrical cord or a hose gets wrapped around an axle just as well as it will get wrapped around processing equipment. And there are some other examples of this, of creative reuse out there that we would not be reinventing the wheel for this. I just kind of made up that quote, but that's something that we basically say to ourselves nearly on a daily basis when we encounter things that somebody dropped off at the recycling drop-off site that's not recyclable, but what do you do with it? It's a perfectly good blender or fill in the blank, but we don't really have a place to take it. We did a good project a couple years ago with Lead Athens where they worked with an apartment complex. When students moved out, they leave out a lot of good stuff behind. We've all seen that, heard anecdotes about that. And this was intended to intercept some of that material and get it to Project Safe and some other local nonprofits. So the stuff is out there. We just need a space. I don't know what to do with a bunch of mannequin heads, but somebody in this creative town does. Like I said, we often see this material. We've done some bulky waste in amnesty events, spring cleaning. We've had some successful repair cafes or fix-it clinics where we invite people to bring in their broken toy or a broken leaf blower or whatever it might be. It's one fellow in here was got 1 out of 2 leaf blowers repaired, so he was delighted. It'll support local nonprofits like Project Safe or Custom Industries or Hope Haven. Custom Industries is one that can supply volunteers. They're always looking for people for projects for their volunteers to work on, and we can fill that need. It would also fill the void of UGA used to have a material reuse program that has gone away. This would somewhat fill that gap. And I want to stress that we would not be competing with these area thrift stores, the Project Safes and the Goodwills. In fact, we could probably support them somewhat. For all those local charities, a significant budget item for them is disposal. They all have pretty big trash cans at their stores. They get stuff they don't want, and this could perhaps help them out. Again, just a few examples of things that we see. That's a pretty cool looking table that they have at the Chicopee building on campus. That shed certainly beats the shed in my backyard, and it was probably cheaper to make. These things are out there in similar communities. Projects can be very simple, like the stack of tires there, to quite complicated and perhaps even expensive, worth quite a bit of money to somebody. Etsy and Goodwill both have online programs to get rid of material that has a perceived value. This is a program that Suki visited in Portland, Oregon, and it includes the items in this picture, up here, all that stuff is for sale. They're not giving anything away. And down in the lower right, you'll see just a old tennis tube filled with a random assortment of things, and you've got an example of that in front of you here tonight. And we gave you a few hints on the inside, but creativity is what makes this whole program tick. Again, some examples from Etsy. That chair is $850. I don't know that they pulled that out of the trash, but we, as a society, we've kind of moved from seconds and hand-me-downs to retro, right? And it's kind of nice that stigma is gone. It's kind of nice from a waste management perspective that stigma is gone. Real quick, logistically, as a department, there's not a lot of money in our proposal for moving material. We move stuff all the time. In fact, some of these programs have already been moved. So aside from some electrical costs, we don't anticipate a lot of need for heavy moving. The big open well of the building is well suited for our programming that we propose in there. And then the admin portion of the building, we actually have an existing classroom at the recycling processing facility, as well as some of the air-conditioned, climate-controlled admin portion is more well suited for workshops and teaching and things like that we would do. And that's fast, but they said to go fast. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
And we put, there was, I apologize, there was just some questions that came through early about the tool shed, the charm, and we tried to address that in some of the handouts in front of you. Some of you may not even have heard of the program previously. Sorry.
Before we start questions, I'm going to give us a 5-minute and a 2-minute warning when we come to the end of our question period, just so everyone's aware, so we can make sure that all members have an opportunity to speak when needed.
Yes, sir.
Since you've had the program, approximately what percentage of material that you take out and then try to use again is actually used again? Or do you have a large part that you then have to just put back in the trash because it's not used by someone?
For the teacher reuse program that we've had for years, I don't know, we just recently did a purge of some very old binders that were not moving, some things that had not moved, and other than that, I don't believe we've actually thrown out anything that's come through there. That was just this past October, and it's kind of a running joke of binders at our place, but you know, we probably threw out 1,000 binders that were getting old and brittle and were not moving, and that's probably not even half of the binders that we had there. But honestly, I don't recall.
No, we get a lot of, paper is on its way out in a lot of offices, so we get a lot of file cabinets, we get a lot of binders, things that hold paper, and so teachers have a choice, nice binders or really used binders. So we purged the really used binders because we have a lot of nice binders that they would prefer to have over the used ones, foreign ones with logos on it. And so really, Joe is correct. We had the teacher restored historically and stored everything, and then got it out like a one-day yard sale, and we got rid of everything. The teachers, my cousin's been a teacher for nearly 30 years. There's really not much they can't use if they're creative enough, and they certainly need it because they don't have any excess money to spend on classrooms. Particular science teachers and art teachers use a tremendous amount of our equipment. So, sorry, more information you need. Sorry, quiet now.
Anything else?
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
You said that UGA stopped their reuse recently?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, they had, for several years, they had a program and a faculty member assigned to it, material reuse program, and it tended a little more towards construction type material, but certainly we're not shy about expanding something like this to construction and demolition type material, you know, block, wood, lumber, things like that, as opposed to things that you might find inside a home or an office.
All right, are there any additional questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.